Hello, everybody. Kel Staten here for the Roundball Daily Rant. Just wanted to do a quick rant here on Bruce Pearl retiring from Auburn, as everyone knows the other day. Obviously, great career for him in college basketball. He will go down as the best coach in Auburn history, but you take a look at what he did. Obviously, he's a controversial figure, not just in the space of just basketball, but also in politics, as he got political on people, which I think a lot of people didn't see coming, and a lot of people thought was kind of interesting, seeing as the fact that he has young African-American players playing for him. Some of the stances that you heard him criticize President Obama, not something that you think you would do if you're a guy who's trying to recruit African-American players to come play for you. And some of the stances that he took on certain subjects may be a little bit controversial. That's why Michael Wilbon said when the announcement was made on PTI, basically said, good, I'm glad. Like, in other words, he said hopefully he was pushed out, and he thinks that maybe that should have happened at Auburn. I think from a basketball perspective as well, he was obviously very polarizing as well, because he had some NCAA violation situations. Tennessee, there was a barbecue that Aaron Kraft, the former Ohio State point guard, went to a barbecue. He wasn't supposed to be having that at that time in the recruiting calendar. And Pearl got hit with that and ended up lying to investigators at the NCAA and basically trying to get his whole staff to say that it didn't happen. And that was basically what got him at Tennessee. And earlier in his career, when he was just an assistant starting out, he ended up kind of ratting out other coaches. I think it was at Illinois for cheating or, in a recruiting scandal situation. Reported them to the NCAA. A lot of people didn't like that, and obviously he had a black mark on his career at that point, and that kind of impacted his career early on. I think the other notable thing about him, obviously, very outgoing guy, very gregarious, you would say, loud, passionate, which I loved about him. I thought in his post-game interviews, the fact that he would jump up and down and dance around with his players and say catchphrases and stuff, I thought that was actually fun and cool for college basketball. I thought he was a really cool character. College basketball wise, and just in terms of his personality and everything. I think he was great with the media. I think I remember him being on ESPN in between the Tennessee job and the Auburn job. And he was a really important, impactful coach. Obviously, he did a great job at Tennessee, got them to their first #1 ranking in program history, took them to a bunch of Elite Eights, couldn't quite get over the hump, but at Tennessee, he was probably the best coach men's basketball-wise, of course, in their history, maybe until Rick Barnes got there. Rick Barnes has done a great job there and being consistent, just like he was at Texas, building Tennessee back up, and maybe he's got him at a little bit higher of a level than Bruce Pearl did. But Bruce Pearl was great when he had him there. He had, I remember, 2 seeds in the NCAA tournament with Chris Lofton and company. Those guys were pretty good, and they had pros as well. And now you take a look at what he did at Auburn when he got back. They had the show cause penalty after the Tennessee situation. Comes to Auburn and basically resurrects Auburn and had Auburn flying at a level that they'd never been at before. And I think a lot of it you can say, okay, this is the SEC now in the new era of college sports. SEC had the best year ever of any league in the country. It's also got some of the best coaches of any league in the country. And this is a little bit because of money and recruiting and the things they're able to do now, the revenue that they're bringing in, and now they can get better players bringing in from football, which other schools don't have the same revenue there. They can get basketball players as well, and they want to compete in basketball. Mike Tranghese done a good job there, being associated with that league, the former Big East commissioner, and getting them to do that. But I think when you look at what's happened there, certainly Bruce Pearl has done a great job, and he's taken advantage, and he is the best coach, no doubt, in Auburn history. You could say Cliff Ellis back in the day with Chris Porter and company that one year, 2003, when they were really good too. They had a couple guys on that team, but very sparingly has Auburn been good in basketball. And maybe, of course, there's a joke on the internet that Auburn is a blue blood, and it's got obviously just a joke that people throw in there, but it's pretty funny. But that's the program that they were. And you take a look at Bruce Pearl, 2 Final Fours, including last year, losing to Florida in the semifinals. A lot of people thought they had the best team in the country last year. Janai Broome was the National Player of the Year. He's got it rolling, and it's interesting to see that a guy who had it rolling, who's young, kind of almost really in the prime of his coaching career in terms of what he'd done, what he'd accomplished. To see him retire is really odd, actually, when you think about it. And when you look at what's happened in recent years, when you look at Tony Bennett retiring just a couple of years after a national championship, when you look at Jay Wright, obviously going to 1 million Final Fours. He was a legend. He was going to be the next huge guy in college basketball. And when you look at Krzyzewski, Boeheim, those guys, that old guard that went out, Jay Wright was the next guy that was on that level that was going to continue that, and he was going to be a legend for a long time in the game, and he decided to walk away right in the middle of that. Really interesting out of him. Of course, he already was a basketball Naismith Hall of Famer. Bruce Pearl, I think, I don't know if I had a Hall of Fame vote. I think the Hall of Fame is too liberal with who they let in. I heard people talking about Dennis Schroeder in the Hall of Fame, which is ridiculous. The fact that obviously he's a great international player and he's done really well in Eurobasket, but Dennis Schroeder, just because he's from Germany, I don't think that should allow him to automatically be in the Hall of Fame. I understand the international game and that whole aspect of things. I think we've grown a little bit where there's enough international players in the NBA now. You can kind of judge them a little bit on their NBA careers a little bit more, but I get that it's weighted a little bit towards FIBA, so I do get that. But I mean, come on. We've seen what Dennis Schroeder does at the highest level against the best players in the world. He's not a Hall of Famer when you go by NBA standards. Okay, he led Germany to a world title. All that stuff, obviously getting sidetracked here, but the Hall of Fame, certainly it's too easy to get into the Hall of Fame is my point. And I think Bruce Pearl, with his resume, what he's done, he did win a Division II national championship, but I think that I wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he quite belongs in the Hall of Fame. I think that certainly what he's done at Tennessee and Auburn, great coach, great all-time coach in terms of, or great coach in this generation, I would say, not all-time coach, because he just doesn't have the accomplishments. When you look at that, when you look at him, cheating a little bit as well with the Tennessee situation and then the Auburn situation, I just don't think that he deserves that level. But certainly a great coach, and if there was a Hall of Very Good, that's where I would put him personally. I think no disrespect to him, but I just think if he had kept going for a long time, if he had made multiple Final Fours, maybe you break through and win a national championship and you continue this path that he was on. I think he was on a Hall of Fame track. But I think at this point, I don't think he did enough to get there, and I don't think he coached for long enough at these schools. I think he was at Tennessee for 6 years. At Auburn, not quite sure exactly how many years he was at Auburn. But when you take a look at that, I just think that didn't quite do enough to get there. And we'll just quickly take a look here. Should have looked this up beforehand maybe, but there's only about 15 people going to be watching this, so it doesn't really matter. But when you take a look at his record at Auburn, from 2014 to 2025. So that's 11 years at Auburn, 6 years at Tennessee, of course, and then at Wisconsin, Milwaukee as well. He did a great job there, bringing them to the Sweet 16. That was really when he broke through as a coach and made his name on the national stage and on the national level. Of course, he was an assistant coach before that. But that's what I would say about him, and I think it's interesting. I think it's a really weird situation that's been happening. Obviously, all these pressures when you talk about NIL, transfer portal, I think is killing coaches. They hate it. I think the new things that have come in, you constantly have to re-recruit your entire team the next season. You don't know how many people are coming back. You have to basically try to bring every single person back. They're all testing their NIL value. We've seen it in college football with Carson Beck going from Georgia and being on the national championship winning team at Georgia, basically, to transferring to Miami, which I think is certainly a ridiculous thing, basically because of the status of those two programs. But it was all about money. It was all about, how much he could make in NIL dollars. And I mean, I guess why wouldn't it be? Everything else is at this point in time. But college sports used to not be about that. It used to be about getting a college education, preparing you for the real world where you make money and making your name. And maybe it wasn't right in a lot of instances with the NCAA and the billions of dollars these schools were bringing in. Of course, it wasn't right to not pay the players. But now you have a system that's like this where it's not about school. It's not about anything like that. It shouldn't even be college football. It's basically like, they're attached to the school extremely loosely. They're basically school employees who are playing football and basketball. But that's where we are right now. And I think all those factors, when you look at the portal and the recruiting everybody, again, your whole team, not just new teams, recruiting was already exhausting when you had to bring in high school players and just try to get them to come to your school. Now you have to get your returning roster every single season to come back. I understand why he would want to step away, and especially the fact that he got his son. I think this plays a major role in it. And we saw Tony Bennett do this when you look at his assistant as well. that he wanted to get in. He retired late in the season. I think it was in August. Don't quote me on that, but he retired very late and was able to get his assistant the job. And Bruce Pearl did the same thing. He retires in September, and his son comes on and takes over. And I think when you look at that, that is interesting because that was, I think, part of the plan clearly, and I think part of the reason why he did this. Other people said political. He had political aspirations, and he mentioned that as well, saying that he would want to run as a senator in Alabama. And I think that that might have been something that he would have wanted to do, but obviously Tommy Tuberville, the former Auburn coach, was able to successfully do that and become a senator. And obviously when you're in Alabama, I think being at Alabama or Auburn, you're going to have that reach and that name recognition that's going to get you 75% of the way there in terms of being able to get votes. And certainly if you have the same political views as they do down there, that is going to be something that's also going to get you a lot of votes down there. So I think when you look at it, that would have been something that would have been crazy. I mean, I would not have wanted to see him go down that road, and he's going to be Auburn's senator now, he said. So that's going to be interesting to see. He cares about the school enough here, obviously, now to try to get them to win at all sports. He says he wants Auburn to continue to be an everything school. So we'll see what happens. But I thought, interesting move, kind of, I don't know. It's interesting to see, like, on a Hall of Fame level, if he could have kept going, if he could have continued to be, because he was one of the name brand coaches in this sport, and this sport is losing name brand coaches. They're losing some of their best talent for whatever reason, whether it's the demands of this. Dan Hurley talked about it. Of course, he said he wanted to quit. There were times when he said he was ready to give it up, and everything that he's been able to accomplish, certainly he's on a Hall of Fame. He, I think, has put himself in the Hall of Fame right now with 2 national championships. But I think if he's ready to give it up in his prime, where he has a chance to become one of the greatest coaches of all time for sure, I think anybody, is certainly on that list and could give it up if he's going to do it. So I think Pearl, it's not shocking that happened, but I don't know. It's still upsetting as a college basketball fan to see them lose some of its biggest names and some of its most successful coaches at this point, and kind of in the prime of their careers, and still while they're young. In the old days, I think if the rules were as they were 20 years ago, I think Bruce Pearl, no question, continues. I think he's got another 10 years in him. Maybe not 10, maybe 5 plus, maybe 10. Who knows? He's 65. But I think he would have had more time. Certainly was great with recruiting. Really knew how to do that, could build a program from scratch. You could say however he did that, he was able to do it really successfully. I think it was with his personality and with his charisma and all that. And certainly if he was my coach, I'd want to run through a wall for him too. He was great at that, good X's and O's guy, really great in situations, knew how to make runs in the tournament, and certainly was able to get over the hump at Auburn that he really wasn't able to get over in 6 seasons at Tennessee, and really elevated that program higher than it really had ever been, including Charles Barkley. A lot of people know Charles Barkley went there, but they were not at this level that they've been at the past couple seasons, and it's going to be really interesting to see if they can continue there. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway is, man, college basketball is losing a lot of coaches here. Who knows what's going to happen going forward? Is anyone going to stay that long? Who knows? Are we going to get legends that coach for 30 years anymore? What's going to happen here going forward? Because it seems like a totally different sport. Seems like a totally different thing now. And it seems like guys get so burnt out. I mean, are some of these guys, you want to go to the NBA? Will we see maybe a Jay Wright in the future in the NBA? Dan Hurley, I think, certainly has a chance to do that at some point. Obviously considered the Lakers offer, guys like that. And we've seen that in the past, of course, with Calipari and Pitino and those guys. But I think when you look at this, it's interesting. I don't know if Bruce Pearl has that kind of juice. Obviously, he's staying at Auburn. But just interesting as you look going forward how this stuff is going to play out, because it's a different world than it used to be in college basketball. And also, I think, in the NBA as well, where people get fired. You saw Mike Malone get fired a year after winning a championship. It's just kind of ridiculous. It's a different world now than it was. And I think in terms of job security and in terms of seeing some of these legends, I think it's going to be a little bit different. And maybe guys aren't going to have the same credentials now going into the Hall of Fame, but we'll remember them as they were at the peak of their powers, maybe almost like athletes as you look at it. But I think something has to change, and I think something will eventually, to kind of simmer things down and calm things down in terms of the transfer portal and in terms of this, because it's gotten out of control. And I think if they don't have a commissioner or someone in charge who's able to enforce some rules and get some sort of direction, and everyone's playing on the same playing field and all that, I think you're going to see more of this, unfortunately. This has been the Roundball Daily Rant. My name's Kel Staten, doing it live here from the kitchen. We'll see you later and have some more rants for you coming up in the future. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.